Guys, what if I brought back my old intro? Hello, hi, welcome back to Mia Likes Movies. My name is Mia and I like movies, like a lot of other things too, but Mia Likes Movies just sounded the best. So this September will mark 10 years since The Sims 4 was released in North America. I consider myself a casual Sims player. I kind of go through phases where I will be super obsessed with The Sims and play it nonstop for like a week or two, and then will not touch it for 6 months to a year. While I was introduced to The Sims through the My Sims games on the DS, which slap by the way, I feel like we don't talk about them enough. Those are very, very good games. I did eventually play The Sims 3, and that was my favorite game for the longest time, especially the expansion pack with the witches. That was real shit. What was it called? Like the Supernatural pack? That was great. Love that.
Love pink.
But all that to say, I think I actually have the most hours in The Sims 4. And like I said, I do consider myself like a more casual Sims player. I do consume a lot of Sims 4 content on YouTube and Twitch. I've noticed just like being on the outskirts of the community, because I wouldn't say I'm in the community, just kind of there, just kind of watching, lurking at all times, that there's actually quite a lot of complaints from fans regarding the fourth installment of the Sims franchise, The Sims 4, if you will. A lot of people criticize the art style for being cartoonish and childish, and also that a lot of the expansion and stuff packs are underwhelming or overpriced. Allegedly, the developers, Maxis, have left a lot to be desired for fans, yet people still play, and that's what I want to answer today. This is going to be a shorter video. It's going to be a little bit analytical, a little bit historical, mostly an opinion piece. I really wanted to dive into Sims 4 culture in a way, just because I find it really fascinating that, a lot of the fans hate The Sims 4, for lack of a better word, but people are still playing it. And I wanted to find out why. The Sims 4 sees continued success despite criticisms due to its accessibility, nostalgia, and overall creative freedom. First of all, I think it's important to establish that The Sims 4 is actually popular, or not necessarily popular, but successful. I'm mostly focusing on financial success and a little bit of critical success, but mostly just like how many copies were sold as well as who's like still playing the game. The main installments of the franchise have sold over 200 million copies worldwide, and it's considered one of the best-selling game series of all time. In fact, and I didn't know this until I researched it, on March 28th, 2017, Guinness World Records actually awarded EA and The Sims Guinness World Record for the best-selling PC video game series. So the series itself is undeniably successful, but can we credit The Sims 4 as the reason for that success? ActivePlayer.io offers live counts of Twitch streamers as well as players for various games, one of those being Sims 4. At the time I wrote the sentence that I'm currently reading to you right now, about 35,000 people were playing The Sims within that hour, and 550,000 people played within the last 30 days. And it also states that about 1.5 million people watched a Sims 4 stream in the past 30 days as well. While these numbers kind of pale in comparison to games like Minecraft, Overwatch, or Fortnite, they're still pretty large numbers, especially for a game that came out almost exactly 10 years ago. According to a EA press release on April 18th, 2023, The Sims 4 is actually the most widely played game in the entire Sims franchise. They specify that at the time of that press release, The Sims 4 had over 70 million players worldwide, and they credit the majority of the success to the game becoming free to play in October 2022, seeing a direct increase of 16 million players after that day. I'll include some more websites in my sources that dive into more statistics, but The Sims 4 is popular all around the globe. So the first true pillar of my argument of The Sims 4 popularity lies in its accessibility. And I want to define what I mean by accessibility because there are a few possible definitions of that word that I could be referring to. One being the quality of being easily reached, entered, or used by people who have a disability. Two, the quality of being easy to obtain or use. Or three, the quality of being easily understood or appreciated. And I'm not looking at this argument in the lens of accessibility as it relates to people with disabilities. I don't have any professional experience with that, and so I can't argue whether or not this game is accessible in that way. That is for someone who has much more credentials than I do. I'm more so looking at the game through the lens of approachability as it relates to accessibility. When I first started this channel, I did a video on life simulation games that is pretty good, and I will link it. I'm pretty proud of that video as well. And I talked about this in that video, and the fact that life simulation games like The Sims are often played by women and members of the LGBTQIA+ community, which I will here to refer to as the LGBT community or the gay community, just as umbrella terms, not trying to erase the other identities because they are valid, but just because it can be a lot to say and we've got a lot to get through. But these games, like life simulation games, are played by members of those communities because of their approachability. This is because typically life simulation games often have mechanics that reflect actions and ideas that are typically associated with women and or gay people. Things like fashion and design through character and structure building, as well as family building and romance, typically more feminine aligned things. Additionally, these games are often slow paced and have lower stakes. Obviously, I'm not trying to say that women and LGBT people can't play games that have high stakes or faster paced. What I'm trying to say is that the gaming community is extremely male centric because it is so male dominated. Both those who make video games and who games are marketed for, most AAA studio video games, are perceived to be straight white men. Often those that do not fit in this demographic can feel isolated within the community, feeling discredited for their talents and or feeling like the content is not made for them. Because life simulation games are typically slower and with lower stakes, they can feel a bit more approachable. There is less to lose and a sense of relaxation to the gameplay. This is also why many people who do not consider themselves gamers and rather more casual gamers will often play life simulation games. So often they will qualify statements with, I don't play video games, but I do play XYZ. For example, I don't play video games, but I do play The Sims. My sister is one of those people. She's not a gamer at all, but she will play The Sims occasionally. And at this point, you may be wondering why I did use the word accessible and not approachable in my thesis, if you will. Now that the game is free to play, it is technically more accessible. The Sims 4 became free to play in October of 2022. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I do believe the original price for The Sims 4 was $39.99. I paid that price. I paid the full $40, and I would like my money back. Yeah, I want my money back. So for about 8 years of the game's existence, The Sims 4 was like $40, right? And then suddenly it was completely free. Of course, this does not include the stuff packs or the expansion packs or anything like that, but it's still a huge deal. Like, this is a very popular game that suddenly became free. Suddenly, people who were not previously able to play the game because they couldn't afford it suddenly could. And according to the aforementioned EA press release from April 2023, The Sims 4 saw major global expansion in its player base due to it becoming free to play. But, you know, of course, in order to play, you would need a computer or a console. But that being said, you don't need like a super fancy computer to play The Sims. I mean, there's that huge joke that the girlies that play The Sims always do so on a MacBook, and that's why their MacBooks always sound like they're going to explode. Because we all know MacBooks aren't gaming computers, right? Like, we all know that. Anyway, all that to say, The Sims 4 is pretty accessible, not only because it is approachable to a general audience, but also because you don't have to pay for it anymore. As long as you have something that could run the very basic requirements, you can play The Sims. And this accessibility directly correlates with its popularity. So we just went over how The Sims 4 is now the most popular installment of the franchise. And this is most definitely, or at least in part, due to its lack of an entry fee. Next, I want to touch on the slight nostalgia factor. This part of my argument is mostly just my opinion with less resurgical proof. So the first Sims game came out in 2000. That is 24 years of this series, which is a pretty long time. Like, the Sims franchise can drink legally. The Sims 4 franchise has graduated college. college. It has a bachelor's. When you read the first Sims Wikipedia page, it says this. Upon release, The Sims garnered widespread critical acclaim and was described by Wright as being successful in attracting casual and female gamers. The game is regarded as one of the most influential and greatest games of all time. End quote. Remember, this is about the first Sims game. We've had several installments since then with mechanical and graphical improvements. For the first game in the series to have this much impact is truly in the essence of the word historic. And not to mention, but The Sims 1 has what is considered to be the first canonic and explicit same-sex kiss in video games. And when I say explicit, I don't mean inappropriate. I mean, you can very clearly tell that it is a same-sex couple kissing. Again, I mentioned this in my previous life simulation Sims video, but I want to reiterate a little bit about the story here for historical context. So at the 1999 E3 conference, EA had a booth dedicated to showcasing gameplay of what would be the first Sims game. Unknowingly to the people there, one of the programmers, whose name is Patrick J. Barrett III, who also identifies as a gay man, had programmed 2 female Sims in the background of a shot that was displayed there to kiss, and he thought that they all agreed that they would go through with allowing same-sex relationships in the game, but unknowingly to him, they decided they weren't going to do that anymore, but that message never made it back to him, again, the programmer, or one of the programmers. Regardless, they ended up showcasing this gameplay at E3, and history was made. The impact this series has on video game history, as well as just history in general, cannot be understated. That was all kind of more historic than nostalgic, but I'm gonna put it under this section anyway because there's a lot of overlap with those two things. So let's just move on. As I said before, I was introduced to The Sims through My Sims on my little white DS, but the main franchise, I played The Sims 3 first. Sims 3 is from what I've seen online, a lot of people's favorite game, or at least people who are around my age's favorite game, which makes sense for when it came out. So The Sims 3 came out in 2009 and I was in elementary school. And you may be thinking, what does that have to do with anything? Well, it has a lot to do with nostalgia. So what is nostalgia? Let's just define it here right now. A quick Google search will bring you to the following definition. A sentimental longing or wistful affection for the past, typically a period or place with happy personal associations. Like I just said, The Sims 3 was my first introduction to the franchise. I still consider it my favorite in all of the Sims games, and it came out in 2009 when I was in elementary school. I think I was like in 4th grade, which was my last year in elementary school. My middle school started in 5th grade. So The Sims 4 came out in 2014. I was a freshman in high school when The Sims 4 came out. Do you know what happened between the time The Sims 3 came out and The Sims 4 came out? For me, personally, middle school. I had gone through the entirety of middle school between the time that Sims 3 came out and Sims 4 came out. Do you know what happened to me in middle school? A lot. A lot happened in middle school, as it does for everyone. But, those are very formative years. I love The Sims 3. So, of course, when The Sims 4 came out, I wanted it. It was like a shiny new toy that could provide an escape. A nostalgic escape, if you will, because it could remind me of something that I had when I was younger, when I was happier, when I wasn't depressed. Thank you, middle school. Obviously, that's like a gross oversimplification of all of that, but I think a lot of people have a similar experience to me with the Sims games, specifically between The Sims 3 and The Sims 4. The Sims franchise is synonymous with video game history. For many young people, and by young people, millennials, Gen Z, you can't really remember a time in video game history when The Sims didn't exist. There is a history of success and fun, and it's like with any sequel or spin-off of anything ever. If you like the original and you go to buy or see the next iteration of that series, you do so because of your love for that previous installment. You can't have one without the other. Finally, the essence of the series is creative freedom to explore, and The Sims 4 is no exception. The Sims games are sandbox games. Yes, I have been calling them life simulation games, and that's because they are, but technically they are sandbox-style life simulation games. You don't know what a sandbox-style game is? Let me explain it to you. According to Wikipedia, sandbox games provide players a great degree of creativity to interact with, usually without any predetermined goal, or alternatively with a goal that the player set for themselves. Sandbox games are often associated associated with an open world concept, which gives the players freedom of movement and progression in the game's world. Essentially, as long as the game's mechanics allow it, you can do it. And this is why I think The Sims 4 has seen the majority of its success. As we are going on about 10 years since the base game's release and over 15 expansion and stuff packs, people are creating whole legacy families within the game, sometimes multiple legacy families. Game Rant wrote an article in March of 2023 naming 7 reasons why they think The Sims popularity never fades. One that I want to point out from this list is number 5, which they entitle The Ability to Play God. And people joke about this all the time, whether you're in the Sims community or not. So, in the Sims, you can create humans and animals and you get to completely control their lives. This grants the player control in ways that one absolutely does not have in real life. You can do horrible, evil things, especially with some really fucked up mods that you can find. You can roleplay Regency era England if you really want, or you can simply create the wholesome nuclear family that you never had. You may have to outsource to online mods or purchase some expansion packs to truly get the story or vision that you are trying to get with your Sims story, but even the base game grants freedom to explore relationships and build communities how you want, which is essentially what people play The Sims for. Play The Sims for playing God within the limits that the developers created, if you will. Playing as a minor god that must answer to a greater creator god. And credit must be given where credit is due. The massive online community has truly made The Sims 4 the massive success that it is. Playing just the base game, in my humble, honest opinion, can be boring. Not to mention, especially when it was first released, The Sims 4 lacks some arguably very vital mechanics in its gameplay. For example, I don't know if you remember this or not, but pools were not originally released in the base game for Sims 4. Pools, the thing everyone jokes about using to kill their Sims. Pools, yeah, they weren't in the base game. I think a lot of the times we misremember that part of history because they did end up adding them into the game about 2 months after release. But still, they took all that time to develop the game and then were like, no, we're not going to use pools, even though they had pools in the base game of previous iterations, both 2 and 3. That's 2 installments out of the 4 in the franchise. And so they had it for 2, they had it for free, and then for 4 they just decided, yeah, they don't need them. Same thing with toddlers. Toddlers were not originally in the base game for Sims 4 either, and they were both in Sims 2 and 3. And unlike pools, they didn't just fix this a couple months after the release of the base game. No. They waited 3 years to add toddlers into the base game for Sims 4. Both pools and toddlers were well-established mechanics in the Sims franchise at this point. And it wasn't until after multitudes of public complaints from the community that EA and Maxis decided to give in. But before then, it was the modders who added pools and toddlers to the game because that's what they wanted or maybe even needed for the stories they were creating. So yeah, The Sims 4 isn't perfect. But what video game is? Yes, EA and Maxis are money hungry, but what big video game corporations are? Isn't it the community that truly makes the game? For The Sims 4, it is. So why is The Sims 4 so popular? I'm so glad you asked. The Sims 4 is popular because it has evolved beyond its creators. The online community for The Sims is alive and well, and they will often fill in the large blanks that EA and Maxis leave in their wake. I found a 17-page list of essential mods for The Sims 4, and I will link it in the description below. Again, I found this, I did not make this, but it's still a really great resource for people who want to get into The Sims or want to get into modding their Sims games. So go ahead and check them out, again, linked in the description below. Let me know in the comments below if you agree with the points I made, and also let me know if you think The Sims 4 is popular, and if so, why? And if not, why? That is all for this video. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Bye-bye.